Well, hey there, team. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to something a little bit different. I will probably call this the Scarlet list, but, you know, all of this is pending. It's a new category that we've been talking about in the Discord, and I'm just going to start implementing it here in the sort of prototyping phase. Maybe a podcast, a monocast, whatever you would like to call it. Not super long, but I will probably not really, I don't think I'll be editing it or anything like that. So it'll just kind of be, well, when I do the other videos, at least I edit out my ums and ahs and that sort of stuff. So this will be a little bit more freeform. I might trip over my words a little bit better because I'm still kind of recovering from mini stroke. But anyway, I digress. So what's the point of this this video, this podcast, this thoughts video? What I am going to do is construct, well, the Scarlet list, which is a sort of living, evolving recommendation list or sort of compilation of all the games that I've reviewed thus far. And it'll be a rolling 12-month list. And it will be ranked as well. Here's the thing. As much as everyone insists that reviewing is subjective, and it is, you know, obviously, find your enjoyment wherever. Some games are objectively great, but they're still unpleasant to play, that sort of thing, and vice versa. You might really enjoy a really shit game, but who cares? Like, you can't really put a designation on that. However, given that I have been reviewing under this model of $5 to 1 hour, I'm actually sort of making an objective space in a way, right? To elaborate. Let's actually step it back a little bit and I'll collect my thoughts. The way that I review games is I play the game for X hours and then I just rant into the microphone. Getting a lot of these silly sausages coming into the comments section trying to tell me, oh, you should write a script and this, that, and the other. And I don't take the bait because I don't want to engage with these bloody Reddit intellectuals that write me walls of text. I just ignore them. But, you know, between you and me and whoever's listening to this, fuck them. They can go listen to their reviews and, you know, their art student dudes. But so many reviews just give me the shits because they're so interested in the craft of writing some sort of faux intellectual think piece. Whereas I'm just some dickhead who wants to play video games. And I don't particularly like that video games is generally the domain of nerds and more technically minded people. Don't get me wrong, if you want to play games, play them, right? But I don't really like all these bloody basket weaving artists coming in here and trying to tell me what's good, you know, the game's not good or it's good because it's got a fucking middling narrative because they took a semester of how to write bloody short stories. So I'm already getting off track. My point is, and we're already getting momentum behind the way that I'm reviewing. People are really, generally speaking, I don't want to get hung up on the negative, but people are really enjoying what I've got to say, which is, it's like, remember with the term water cooler games, the whole BioShock thing? They tried to coin that, and I got in on that. The idea that you'd be at work, standing around the water cooler, be like, oh, I fought that big daddy. How'd you fight him? Oh, I got the security drones to fight him. What did you do? Oh, I set up a whole bunch of those electric spear wire traps and, you know, that sort of thing. I'm bringing that back in a way, right? So that's what my reviews are. I spend some time with the game, I share my thoughts on it, and that's it. That's as complicated as it needs to be. It doesn't have to be any more complicated. I don't have to try and justify my job and pretend and put more work in than I already do. So that's it. That's the format, in case people are missing it. At first it was a guide, but it's definitely a hard, fast rule now, in that I will only play the game for the amount of time that is dictated by the money that they are asking. And if the game is bloated, or if they have more game, or it gets better after a few hours, or maybe they're undercharging, that's not my fault. That's their fault and the publisher's fault. And truly, if you can just let go, because I recommend this sort of methodology, you know, massage the number yourself, but I recommend it to anyone else out there. Stop just trying to play games because you're trying to get dollar value out of them, or you're trying to squeeze blood from a stone. That's another comment I keep getting, but people don't realize that it's a bit of a self-report. They're like, oh, well, I strictly want bloody 100 hours per dollar. Well, what is it? An hour per dollar or something like that. And then the funny thing is, it's such a bloody hive mind thing because it's the same people they say the same things and they have the same logical fallacy, right? That they think that I don't value my time enough. And I'm like, wrong, you don't value your time enough. If you're going to, on principle, play a $60 game for 60 hours when you probably should have only played it for 20, and the last 40 hours were a miserable experience, you forced yourself for like a month to grind just to justify, to get value out of it, right? Like, what is your time worth, brother? Because I don't understand that. Anyway, so I'm all over the place, but this is sort of the freeform thing, and we're experimenting with it, and I haven't even gotten to the point of what's going on here. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm sticking to this system, and the funny thing is that if I play a $20 game over here and I play a $20 game over there, and I play them for the same amount of time, in a certain way, there is an objective comparison to say, well, my 4 hours spent with this game was more pleasant than my 4 hours spent with that game. And then it scales, right? If it's a $40 game and I spend 8 hours with it, because it's 5-1. I could go, well, were those 8 hours better than, I don't know, the combined 4-hour blocks, the 2 4-hour blocks of those other games? But all of a sudden, I actually have a pretty good framework for, within my subjective experience, objectively comparing things. And the only key is that as a consumer, and we sit around like these Wally people, fucking big fat roundies playing video games, just lying in our deck chairs, wanting more and refusing to compromise. If you can just let go of the idea that maybe you just play the game for X hours and then you put it down, and it's not that you never think about it again, but you let go of this FOMO, this completionist weird manifestation that so many gamers have. And it's probably because they don't have anything going on in their life. They need a job that's more fulfilling than working in the fucking produce section, squeezing mangoes or something like that. I'm not trying to disparage, but I am trying to understand why people get so obsessed. I think the ending of the game is the worst part. It's the journey, No one's in a hurry to die. The journey through life's important. This is a little bit philosophical, but this is something that I don't really have the bandwidth to explain in my videos either. And maybe this helps you. You don't have to agree, obviously. That's fine. But maybe this helps people understand a bit more where I'm sort of coming from when it comes to all of this stuff. Anyway, so I'm sort of just laying that out there. So yeah, I'd implore you to do the same. I'm not going to change it. However, I think there is still scope for playing a game to completion, but only in the rare occasion that it earns it. And what I might do in my downtime, what little I have, I work 2 jobs, and this one I play 36 hours a week for the channel. That's the rule. I'll explain all this. I don't have a lot of downtime, but I am contemplating clocking some other games on the side, things like Cyberpunk, things that really, really grab me. Going back to the Far Cry games, for example, I'm thinking about that. But these are more of a rare exception. And I feel like that's probably the hardest hurdle to overcome, because it's easy to browbeat and bash the industry for all the things that they're doing wrong, loot boxes, all this sort of crap bloat. That's kind of the easy battle. The hard one is convincing gamers that maybe they should just show some bloody restraint. Everyone talks about voting with your wallet, but no one votes with their wallet. No one does it, Everyone buys, look at the backlog problem. Everyone buys $10 games on sale and it sits there and does nothing, right? The problem's not the sales culture or anything like that. The problem's you. The problem is the person picking up the game on 90% when they probably should just restrain themselves. Anyway, I'm not here to fucking self-help or anything like that. What I'm explaining is I have a strict method that I play a game only as long as its price tag dictates. And through that, I can construct a list, a ranking, which is as objective as I possibly can be within the subjective nature of enjoying a game. And then if I rank that list, kind of percentile based, but just ranked, right, from 1 down, and I keep track of that and I put it in a Google Sheets for you to access as well at any given time over the course of this. Hopefully we do this for a decade. Who cares, as long as I've got left. Geez, that sounds grim. the idea is that you will have a rolling 12-month list of weighted games, and you don't have to agree with them, but you could work down the list. Like, I'm very eclectic. I play everything, but maybe you only play certain genres. You could work down my list of recommendations. If you're already a fan, if you're already subscribed and we align and you like this bogan with a microphone just sharing his thoughts, then I feel like maybe this list could be of use. Anyway, so that's the intro. That's the lead in. Let me explain the system a bit more. Again, just so it's concrete clear. For every $5, and I round it up and down, right, at the $2.50 mark, right? So if a game is $7.50 Australian, I'm going to play that for 2 hours because I round it to 10, right? If a game is $6, I'm going to round it to 5. Right? Does this make sense? It's very basic math. I fear for the future generations if they can't figure this out. So I round it within $5. All right. Example, I'm playing Avatar at the moment. That's $100, which is fucking wild. And I'm putting 20 hours into that. All right. So that's how we construct the system. I play 36 hours a week dedicated to this undertaking. Remember, I work a full-time job as well as this, so I'm basically doing this full-time as a second thing. And here's the thing. The reason I chose these numbers is essentially because it's divisible by 9 in a way, right? $90 Australian is kind of the going rate for a AAA price. So you can use your American conversion. It's probably like 60 or something, right? But $90 Australian, $89.95, that's what a AAA is. Some of them are trying to push their luck. Bethesda egregiously is churning out things for 120, like Starfield. Lol. But anyway, so the idea is, if I do that, 9 by 5, we got 18 hours essentially, or sorry, the 5 to 1, right? 90. Sorry, I threw myself out because I was like 9 by 5. That math doesn't actually make sense. So if I'm paying $90 for a game and you divide that by 5, the exchange, I'm going to be playing it for 18 hours. 18 hours for a AAA game, that makes a lot of sense. 36 hours a week, that's kind of 2 AAA games a week. For someone who's trying to review and, it's a bit different for me, you're probably not going to play that much dedicated to the new hotness. I get it. But also, you can kind of divide that up. And the way I look at it is that's kind of 1 AAA game, 1 AA game around the $60 price mark, and 1 indie game, probably around $30. So on average, the hope is it will even out. We'll see how it goes. But it's probably going to be about 3 new games a week, roughly, that I'm going to be reviewing and adding into the list. So there's method to all of this madness. So how does this manifest in a video sort of thing? What we're going to do is I'm going to do like a seeding of the eligible games that I've already reviewed under this experiment. There's about 15 of them or something. I've cut ones out like This Is the Police and games that aren't from the last 12 months because this is just going to be the last 12 months rolling. You have to have a cutoff. You have to have a rule. Funny thing is that the value for money is going to change over the years as well. Like I said, we can already see some studios trying to push that $90 boundary into this AAA plus space. So I might have to rework my formula as the years go on. Likewise, you can pick up games that were for like not even on special. They'll be price reduced to $20 from, 10 years ago, but the game relatively would have been $90. You know what I mean? The going AAA industry price. So this is all stuff that's set in current year. What's your point, Scarlet? You're waffling. My point is that 12 months is current. That's the way that I look at it. That's the point of this channel, right? As much as I like the idea of going back and playing older games and all that, that's not really going to be for the channel because that's not the channel's function. What I might do, actually, is review older games. Like, for example, Ixion is now just over 12 months old. And I feel like playing that, and I feel like playing that to completion. So in my downtime, I will likely play that, and I'll probably do a review and put it up on the second channel. Call it something else. But that's a passion project, a side project. Anyway, so the point is, We're going to have a rolling list. It's going to take 12 months to populate, but it will have, 36 times 52 weeks, hours worth of games reviewed, all listed. I was going to say alphabetized, but no, ranked from what I would recommend down. And that doesn't mean the game at the bottom of the list is bad or anything like that. It just means that contemporaneously, in the 12 months that it existed, it happened to be the worst pick of the rest. So that way I can cover lots and lots of games. I can cover them pretty thoroughly, right? Granted, I know, right? Some games you need 100 hours to get out of them, and some are only 8 or whatever. But in the pursuit of trying to be a relatively objective reviewer that recommends, and I can cover, that's the other thing. I don't want to let go of my variety roots. You have a look at a lot of these reviewers that have just gone pure AAA or whatever, or one genre or whatever. I feel like I don't want to become detached from what the rest of the industry is doing. So I want to review everything as much as possible. And for me to spread myself wider, not thinner. Well, actually, there's truth to that. In the pursuit of spreading myself wider and covering more variety games, I'm going to have to put in less hours to them. Anyway, so I think it's an objective trade, and it makes me happy, and I have had a catharsis that you probably wouldn't believe or understand unless you try it yourself. It was actually really hard for me to let go of the idea of putting down a game when I was done with it by the timer. Like things like The Last Fate. Saabi's another great one. Saabi's so good. What a wonderful game. And part of me really wants to play more of it. But the thing is, you put it down, and it is one of those things. I think we are overstimulated, over dopamine riddled. As time has gone on, the weeks have gone on from me reviewing that, I now look back on it and go, oh man, that was good. It's fond memories. I've managed to let go of the compulsion to clock it. And who knows, maybe 12 months from now, when it cycles out, I will go back and complete it. But my point is, I know you probably don't believe me, but if you can just let go and just play a game for a while, and here's the most important takeaway. God, I am waffling all over the place, but that's the appeal of podcasts, I guess. And I'm pretty good at getting my thoughts across, I think. Anyway, what I was going to say is putting something down while you're ahead and not giving it the chance to shit the bed. There's something kind of magic about that. And it is so foreign to essentially just consumer video gamers that chew up everything and buy anything on sale and that sort of stuff and just want more. I get it. It's a consumer relationship, and you should expect the best. But the idea of I'm going to finish this game on a high note instead of grinding longer than I should and having a miserable experience on the back end, it's kind of magic, and I think it eludes a lot of people. Anyway, just sharing that thought. So that's the construction of the list. That's the hours that go into each game. That's how it's going to rank up. And on average, I estimate I'll be reviewing probably about 3 games a week. We'll see, because that's kind of assuming that AAA down to the indie is sort of evenly distributed as far as releases worth covering. So who knows? It might be more stacked to indie or AAA, but, best laid plans. That's where we're at. So that's how this will manifest in the future. We'll seed the games that I've already reviewed. But as I do this weekly, the idea would be that I add 3 new games to the list, the 3 that I just reviewed that week. I probably cycle out 3-ish. It's going to depend because, I might review a game from 6 months ago that I missed, so cycling in and out is going to be varied, but it should be roughly 3 for 3. And then I suppose I could then predict the 3 upcoming games that I'm going to review as well. So maybe you can put them on your radar. I mean, subject to change. Sometimes I get keys the day before, that sort of crap. Like, it's unpredictable. But I think, working in threes like this will be of value. And then I can waffle about my thoughts on this, that, and the other to a point as well. Anyway, like I said, this is a little bit meandering and all that. It's just getting a bit of info out. And I don't want to say it's collaborative because, I still run everything like a dictator. It's my channel. But at the same time, I'm not immune to helpful criticisms or suggestions and that sort of stuff. So you have any thoughts around how I can, best massage this system, let me know. So yeah, so that's going to be the plan. Ultimately, when we get this off the ground, especially going into the new year, 3 new games discussed and added to the rankings, and I'll probably do the seeded rankings within the review video as well. So like at the end of the review, I'll say this is where it's going to go on the Scarlet list. I'll update it. I will keep it in a Google sheet that will be in the description of all my videos. The 3 that I reviewed and my thoughts, in case you missed them. The 3 that potentially are upcoming. The 3 potentially that are cycling out. And that'll probably do it, so they probably won't even be as long as this. So yeah, they're my thoughts. Right, so let's get to the meat of it. I have a list in front of me, and I don't know how we're going to do this. It's probably going to be pretty slack B-roll. I'm not big on editing, and I'm kind of feeling a bit belligerent. For every dude that goes, oh, your B-roll doesn't line up with the point you're trying to make, that just makes me want to never edit anything ever and potentially put up B-roll or something else. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm a video maker out of necessity because this is how you get your information on games that you want to play, and this is how I convey it to you. I have no interest in being a videographer, right? I already have a main job. I already have an illustrious career, but multiple actually behind me, right? I just want to play video games and show them to people, and that's about it. Dare I say the content or the actual weight of my content is in my words, right? My thoughts, not the pretty lights that I put on the screen to distract you. Okay, so let's start. We're going to start older to newer. First one out the gate is Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. And I guess I'll share some brief thoughts because, yeah, this is going to, like I said, this is a unique episode because we're seeding 14 games by the look of it. So look, I'm just going to put this in my spreadsheet and we're going to put it in number 1 slot because it's the number 1 game, right? There's not really much else to say other than it was really good fun. I really, really liked it. However, like it is just a Valheim kind of reskinned. I know that seems derivative, but and that's a bit rough to say actually. I really, really enjoyed it. And it did some very Tolkien-esque stuff, like the mechanics. Yeah, in fact, I want to take that back. It's not just Valheim reskinned. However, if you're not sold on Valheim, even with all the cool Lord of the Rings stuff that's in this game, I don't know if that's going to sell you, right? You'd have to, like if you hate the Valheim model, which I doubt anyone really does, but it's fun until it's not. It wore me out. Such a grind. But then, of course, putting it on Epic Store. Now, I don't mind Epic Store. I think people that hate Epic Store because their favorite YouTuber told them it was bad are fucking small brains. One thing that a lot of people miss about Epic Store is how much of a cut they give to the developers because that doesn't concern you because you're the consumer. And it probably shouldn't, to be perfectly honest. But that's not something, it's like, how does this help me, the consumer? A lot of people think that way and they don't realize that Epic gives something like an 80 or 90% profit sales cut to their creators. And they have like a sort of startup indie program. That's why you get exclusivities and all that, because they'll give fuck you money to some of these guys to make their game on Epic. It's very, very developer and industry friendly. But from a consumer perspective, I think that's lost on a lot of people. Anyway, this isn't turning into an Epic rant. But another example, sorry, just on that though, because I don't want to leave it. I'm playing Avatar, and that's on the Ubi Play launcher, right? Now, eventually they do migrate across once the initial sales rush on the game has happened. Because after your game's been out for a year or two, the sales numbers are like insignificant, outside of exceptions. But like, I guarantee you, this is why they're all retreating to their own launchers. Ubisoft's really aggressively, like, they only release on their own launcher brand new now, and then they'll bring games later. But EA's kind of doing the same thing as well, And it's because Steam takes a gigantic cut of the revenue from sales, right? And if you are, like, in the defense of Ubisoft, if you are a giant fuck you AAA company that's going to make games and has an install base and is going to get the sales anyway, like, surely you would scoff at capitulating and at giving a humongous cut of your profit margin to Steam, you know. And in a certain way, as someone who loves, you know, corporatism and capitalism and all that, I kind of understand that as well. You don't need Steam. You know, a lot of indie games that are trying to get their name out there, they pay the gouging price that Steam charges because they need Steam to get their game out there, to get it in front of people and that sort of stuff. Anyway, this got a little bit off track. My point is, there are aspects of Epic Games Store that are very, very friendly towards the industry. But this is the first time I've ever really been negative on them. You can't gift games through Epic Store. And that really boggles my mind. And so that was a problem that we had when we were playing Moria, is I was willing to gift games to some dudes just to, you know, business expense in a way, just to get the 8 dwarf stack going. But I couldn't do it. So the game made it very hard. So the price point was a bit steep. And it's on Epic Store, which is already, you know, not exactly the best place to play multiplayer games because it doesn't have that install base. And even if you are the alpha nerd of your group that's willing to buy copies and give them to your mates, because I know that there are nerds that do that, right? They have the disposable money to make the experience happen. Outside of swapping bank account details, you couldn't do it. So, like, yeah, that was really weird. And it's a shame. I don't even want to discuss stuff like that. I hate the idea of having to discuss things outside of the game affecting its success. You know what I mean? I like staying inside the game. I practice, like, death of the author and that sort of thing. So, like, I don't give a fuck what the politics of the game is of the dude that made the game. He could be anywhere on the spectrum. He could be a fucking criminal. I couldn't care less because, you know, the work product, the art, dare you say, is what matters. And so it's a shame that, like, we need to even discuss that Moria, I don't know if I'd say flopped, but it could have been a much bigger blowout success had they not gone on Epic, or if Epic at least created a much more friendly ecosystem for trying to gift copies of games to friends, etc., especially for an 8-player game that's, you know, how much is it? Like $60, $55? Jesus. Anyway, barely talked about the game. Game's good. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it until I didn't. All right, what's next? DotAge. All right, so Scarlet, did you like DotAge better than Moria? Yes. DotAge seeds at 1. I'm not putting this all up on the screen because I'm not really going to edit this too much. It's already going super long. I'll probably put B-roll up from my reviews or something, but you can check the list yourself. DotAge, you might have missed it. That game is so brilliant. It's a cool little colony builder. I don't know how else to describe it, just briefly. Sort of board gamey, very, very charming, but real brain twister. Really trying to figure out how to grow your colony, how to feed it, how to tech up, and that sort of stuff. Just brilliant at the basics, as my old captain used to tell me. He hated my guts and I hated him, but brilliant at the basics. You couldn't deny it. Yeah, DotAge goes first. Risk of Rain returns. We will seed at 3 under Moria. It's okay. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not disappointed or anything like that. I'm a huge Risk of Rain 2 fan. I have no issues with Risk of Rain 1, but I also have no nostalgia for it or anything like that. And Risk of Rain Returns is ultimately just a remastering. It's a visual update. They put a couple of things in there from Risk of Rain 2, but it's just Risk of Rain 1 again, which was probably a brilliant game when it came out 10 years ago. But it's got some of that legacy stuff. You know, it works within the framework that it's working, but it is one of those things going from the 2D perspective two hands on the keyboard to Risk of Rain 2, it was just such a phenomenal upgrade that that this is a step. It's kind of a step back if you're going into it new. I might sound harsh. It's cool. It's fun. But who's it for is the question. And it's not for the huge fans of Risk of Rain 2. It's for people that liked Risk of Rain 1 and they want a visual upgrade, pretty much. So it's not bad at all. But it's not going to blow your socks off unless you're that particular target audience. Or now, saying all that, Stronghold Definitive Edition, which is interesting, right? Because that originally Stronghold's a really old game, which I have no nostalgia for. I've never played Stronghold. But if it's released in current year, it goes on the list, right? Which is something we might even have to look at. Like, what about games that come across from Epic? What about games that are like Ubisoft? Say Ubisoft puts Assassin's Creed Valhalla, on Steam a year later. Do I review it a second time? Maybe, if it's what's good at the time. I don't know what the rules are around that. I haven't figured it out yet. Anyway, Stronghold Definitive Edition. That's going at 1. Above DotAge. I fucking really, really enjoyed that. The controls apparently, they're not that complex, but they've been modernized. You can rotate camera and you can hide the buildings. And I was talking to a mate that was playing it as well, and he was saying it's really, really good compared to the original, the way they've updated the controls. For those that somehow don't know about it, because you're probably like me, I didn't know about it. It's like a castle defense game. You build your castle, you build your keep. So it's like a colony manager, but waves of dudes attack you. Story and all that is dated and serviceable. It does the job, but there is an addicting loop there that I really, really enjoyed my time with that. Death Must Die. I'm going to seed that at 1, right? So above Stronghold. This might all seem confusing, but that's a problem with seeding 15 games instead of placing 3 into an existing database. You have to bear with me. Death Must Die is sort of it's a roguelike game with some ARPG trappings. It's got like a Diablo inventory loot system. It's borrowed very heavily close to ripoff of the Hades god way of giving you skills. With the voice line and the splash, and they go up and that as well. And the only reason it really gets off the hook is because it's kind of a different genre, to Hades. You're gonna have to bear with me on that one. Hades is much more of like a narrative roguelike. I don't know what else to call it. It sits in its own thing. But a run of Hades is generally quite long and involved, and it feels more narratively invested. The skills, while there is nuance to the builds and all that, the skills come further apart. The dopamine being meted out to you is much lower. And it does have a huge focus on progression. And Hades is brilliant. There's a reason everyone loves it. But Death Must Die is much lighter, punchier, higher power creep, handing out bloody upgrades like they're candy, right? You'll level up 30 times in a run, whereas Hades, you won't. So yeah, in a way, even though they are actually the same genre, the fact that this is much more lighter, dare I say more casual, right? More palate cleansy, whereas Hades is much more of a main game that you would be playing. It actually works that it's kind of ripped off some of its artistic stylings. The Kinderman Remedy, we're going to put that at the bottom. That's the only game that I have put, like, not recommended as a negative. Hey, I'll just clue you in, guys. I'm probably not going to do negative ever again. I think the title, Worth Your Time, Worth Your Money, is catchy, is cool, and I'm just going to call everything that, right? I don't. The problem with it is I don't like clickbait. And without going too inside baseball, like, I don't particularly recommend the Kinderman thing, but if I could do it over again, I would have the same thumbnail as everything else and just call it It's Worth Your Money, and then explain in the video why it's not really worth your money, right? it's attracted in a bunch of haters, people that literally click on it to start a fight. Like, because it's a negative title saying it's not worth, making this objective statement, it's not worth your money. Because at the end of the day, I'm still sympathetic. It's worth the money and time to someone, surely, right? But the point is that a lot of traffic I got around that video specifically, without even talking about the game, were people that obviously like the game. They've Googled it. They've seen someone that has a negative opinion, and they've clicked on the video. Not that they even give a fuck about what I have to say, but because fuck you, Scarlet, you're negative, your enemy, right? It's kind of wild. It's been an interesting experiment for someone who really doesn't play in the clickbait space, and I don't like negativity as a brand. I think I'm just going to keep these exact same thumbnails, even if the game's absolute dog shit. And this game's not very good. I would probably still call it worth your time, worth your money, and then explain. I'm not going to say soften the review. I still put edge into it. But example with Kinderman, because that's clearly a ripoff of Ravenous Devils. Is that what it's called? Ravenous Devils? Which is brilliant. But if you're someone that loves that game, really love that game, and really desperately wants another version of it, albeit a cheaper, not as good version, but still something copying it, then I would recommend the Kinderman experiment. So you can get around it. Anyway, I'm waffling a little bit, but yeah, that's a bit strange. Oh, also another one, and I feel, a part of me feels bad mentioning it, but then at the same time, fuck this guy. The developer bloody back channel messaged me having a go at me for having a negative review of him. It was a pretty gentle go, and I'm not trying to start a fight or anything like that. But get fucked, man. Like, I'm not going around saying I'm pressed and I'm the fifth estate or anything like that. If someone wants to post a video because your game's not very good and tell the truth about that it's not very good, and I did it in such a way that I was quite gentle, I wasn't just hating or anything like that, and then to still get messaged by someone, now granted he wasn't going to war with me, but he had a go at me. I'm like, that's pretty fucking piss weak, I would say. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. I haven't really talked about it. There's no real medium to talk about it, and I'm not exactly a drama-chasing YouTuber or anything like that, so, I almost feel bad bringing it up then. But it was interesting. The one time I ever said anything really negative on my channel ever, and the developer came at me, and it makes me wonder, like, is that more prolific? Because I've been doing this for years. I don't really think I've ever had a developer have a go at me for my negative opinion. Anyway, it's very strange. It might just be unusual timing. Death Road's tournament, that's a tough one. I liked aspects of it. However, it doesn't really have legs. That was the sort of issue. Where would I put this? You know what? I might seed it underneath Risk of Rain Returns. I'm just copy pasting all this shit while I go. What's that? Seeding at 6 at the moment. Yeah, it's cool. It's okay. It's interestingly, I can't remember the name of them, but it's not Blue Manchu. Blue Manchu made Card Hunter, which this game's borrowed a lot from. Then another dev has taken over Card Hunter while Blue Manchu, in fact, they just announced a new game, the next Void Bastards. Void something or other. It's like a space cowboy game instead. So they moved on to better things, and they got another dev studio to sort of caretake Card Hunter, and that studio made Death Road's tournament. So they've lifted the mechanics that they're used to caretaking. They didn't exactly invent them, but they've been working with them in recent times. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just unusual, that the caretakers of a franchise are making their own go at the franchise, and they kind of got the moving parts, but some of the magic's missing, Whereas to expound upon Blue Manchu, they went and made Void Bastards, kind of radically different to Card Hunter, and still same magic. Like, it's clear that the dudes in that studio, they got it. they have the fucking juice. They can play make and come up with cool games. I'm gonna have a sip. All right. So, where will we? Death Road's down there. Yep, cool. Okay, yeah, that's fine. It's not bad or anything like that, but I felt like it opened with really cool mechanics that ran out of gas really fast. Saabi is going at number 1. Great little game that no one watched, no one cared about. One of my least watched videos. Probably one of the best games I've played in the last 12 months. What else to say? It's really good. Side-scrolling platform thing with a real heart of gold story. I compared it to The Last of Us in my review in that it's The Last of Us but good, pretty much. It does the dude with a dark past with a surrogate daughter and keeping her distant and all this sort of stuff. And the combat is more of a platforming, swinging around on your chain fist thing. Oh, it's so good. I don't really need to talk about it other than to say it's at the number 1 slot. It might sit there for a while. So there you go. The Last Faith. The Last Faith I'm going to put in 2 under Saabi, which is fascinating. The Last Faith, I suffered through the first hour or 2, right? And part of it might have been my butterfly transformation phase as I have learnt to... Like, I've changed in the way that I see games a bit doing this pivot as opposed to it feels like a lifetime ago where it was sometimes Let's Plays, but mostly just the first 30 minutes of everything. And that was a necessary evil for what I was trying to do. I was just trying to cover as many games as possible. But tragically, if you only play 30 minutes of the game, you only see games in a certain way. And if I only played the first 30 minutes of Last Faith, I would have thrown it in the bin. Because I just found it was clunky and it was more frustrating than fun. It does have its issues, and I think the whole issue of trying to turn Dark Souls games into side-scrolling games still needs work as an industry. No one's really done it that well yet, and I would argue maybe you don't even need to do it. So it's sort of trying to blend Castlevania and Souls-like, and it comes up short in some ways. But my God, there was an addictive quality. It was, some games that spoiler, I'm burning out a little bit on Avatar as I play more of that, right? Still great game. But most games usually, as you go through it and the loop and all that, it can become stale, right? That would be almost a natural path. I don't know, man. The Last Faith just got more fun. The more I played it, I just enjoyed it more and more and more, and really, So that's probably an argument that they're not even publishers, but their dev leads, their studio leads should have a fucking chat about. If only they ever heard this info, that they should take more creative control over the front loading and making the game more fun at the front, because it became more fun as it went on, and I don't really have the bandwidth right now to unpack why, because I don't really know why. I'm just sort of discussing it. Anyway, great game, but you sort of have to invest that first few hours. Gangs of Sherwood. All right, fuck, where do you put this? There's good multiplayer. Gangs of Sherwood. I might put it. It's a bit spicy, but I'm going to put it between DotAge and Lord of the Rings Moria. Yeah, so, I mean, if you want to put words in my mouth, did you enjoy Gangs of Sherwood more than Moria? Kinda. Yeah, I guess. Like, it was pretty wild. I mean, you could argue you will get better value investment-wise from Moria, because it's got a more of an RPG growth character build mechanic, whereas Gangs of Sherwood's kind of just insane. But that was such a fun game, and probably one of the more controversial things on this list. I noticed that reviews it's not doing that well, and it's exactly what I predicted, actually. It's, people with no mates trying to play it, and it really makes me wonder to get inside the head of that dude. Like, I'm sympathetic, sorry you got no mates. That's fine. But, like, don't rail against it. Maybe don't embrace it. You're somewhere in the middle. Accept that you got no mates. Maybe go out in the world and try and make some more. But, like, understand that the square peg doesn't fit the circle hole. And because so I see these dudes going in there, they're getting angry that it doesn't have matchmaking, that it's not fun single player. They're complaining that they couldn't get a group together and all that. And I'm sort of like, mate, for where you are in your life right now, or maybe just full stop, the game's not for you. So what are you doing? You know, at the same time, like Risk of Rain Returns, that's low on my list. It's a good game. It's not really for me. It's for people with that nostalgia. But, I'm not necessarily bashing. I'm not going and putting a negative review on Steam. I'm ranking it out of necessity here. Anyway, so my point is that a lot of the backlash to Gangs of Sherwood was less that the game knows exactly what it is, and it was a fucking romp. It was really, really fun. But also, it's is it a good game from conventional review metrics, like graphics and all that sort of stuff? No, it's not. But that shit doesn't matter. Like, it's cool having a pretty game. And I don't need to explain this to you. If you're still listening to this podcast at this point, then you know this fucking full well. There's a reason why my channel's starting to do really well doing these reviews. Because we don't give a fuck about whether you're going to give a 7 or 8 on graphical fidelity or audio soundscape. Use your words to discuss and talk about it. But why? Why are we pretending like if you give this an 8 or 9 out of 10 for its graphics, audio, this, that, and the other, that it makes up for the fact that it's not a fucking fun experience, right? So this is the inverse. The stuff on paper, the moving parts, the technical components are not fun. No, I shouldn't say fun. Jesus, what am I saying? I'm doing all right for just this rant that keeps going. They're not good. However, the core loop of doing aerial combat chains and the different move sets for all the different characters is really, really fun. But again, another hard pitch, 4 people playing together. Game's already got a lot of negative reviews, fairly steep price point. When you've got free-to-play frigging Fortnite games out there as well, right? It's a tough pitch to make these sort of games. I think you're just going to see them disappear more and more because who's really buying them? The hope is that the studio budgets correctly, that it doesn't move astronomical copies, but it moves enough to cover itself and then some. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you can tell the difference between a studio that's just doing its thing within its strict business model, which is probably the case here, and then you've got the ones that are trying to shoot their shot. They're trying to become the next super publisher, super EA or whatever, and that smells desperate. So no, I really like Gangs of Sherwood. That's really fun, but I doubt it. Most people listening to this probably aren't ever going to play it. Last Train Home. Okay, so Last Train Home is interesting. Let me have a sip. It's good, but it had some questionable design decisions, and the bugs, man, fucking killed me. There's some games that you just can't have bugs in. You just can't. And these long form, like XCOM, I call it XCOM like. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit off track. Last Train's good. Last Train Home. I confess I was really quite smitten with the subject material that it covers. It's really interesting, but I don't want to be hypocritical and fall down the same fucking rabbit hole that like all the Spider-Man 2 simps do, right? Because they're so enamored with the source material or whatever, they overlook whether it's a good game or not, right? So yeah, The Last Train Home has some really fascinating history bro bait sort of stuff, which I fell for. But at the core, the game has some issues. Funnily enough, I found the RTS component to be the better part, but I read some reviews on Steam afterwards, and it seems that most people dislike that part. The train management is really fucking fiddly. it's kind of shallow. A lot of slotting and moving dudes around. It just gets really frustrating. You have to balance the daytime and the nighttime shift work sort of thing. And it's one of those things that either you're trying to min-max your squads in such a way that you're moving everything out, which is fiddly, or you go the other end where you just lock dudes into a slot and you never touch them ever again, which means when they level up, you just give them the exact same points and the exact same skill because, you know, the dude's a train engineer. He never moves. All he does is work and goes to sleep. So you got no reason to give him any other skills or classes or anything like that. And so, yeah, like either you're trying to really squeeze value out of it or you almost don't engage with it. And, yeah, it's a really cool idea and it works fairly well, but it's, you know, it's not going to be at the top of my list. Anyway, where would I put it? Last Train Home? I'm going to put it under DotAge. I'm going to put it above Gangs of Sherwood. Now we're getting kind of current last week. Blood West. Blood West is really good. Grew on me. Getting all these really fucking weird stealth simps coming into me comments section. I read the comments, you know. The only ones I delete comments sometimes, and by delete you can shadow ban the user on YouTube. A lot of people don't know this. It's not publicly known for whatever reason. I can't believe people don't talk about it more. Because if I delete your comment, you know that I delete your comment. I'm not trying to be insidious, but I don't want to be confrontational. So if you check back on your video because you put a spicy comment down, you're trying to get some sort of reaction or engagement, if it's gone, you'll notice. You can shadow ban someone from your channel and they'll come back and they'll have a look for the comment and it will still be there for them. And the only real way I think that you could tell that it's not there and appearing for other people is if you came back in a different account or in incognito mode. And so usually I just shadow ban psychopaths because you get them, right? And everyone's going to draw the line differently, right? Again, I'm not a free speech absolutist when it comes to running my channel. It's my channel. It's my business. I've joked about it being Scarlet's fish and chip shop in the past. In that, you know, if you want to come into my fish and chip shop and start screaming at me about politics and all that, I'm going to kick you the fuck out, right? However, I still believe in general free speech, but I also believe on my business premises, you know, I run it the way I want to run it. So broadly speaking, I let people be critical of me on the channel. Like, I don't mind that. The danger is that constructive, true, critical, unpersonal criticism is actually kind of a bit rare. So you do get people come in and they will say, I can't even think of a great example, but they will make constructive criticism in their comment, but it's laced in between, fuck you, I hope you die, you know, you piece of shit sort of stuff. And it's like, I don't want that in my comment section. I don't want that culture. You know, I don't really want to see that. So I'll read the negativity and I'll take it on board. I honestly do my best to take on, you know, I'm not stupid. I can see when someone's giving you honest feedback, but often it's impassioned because, again, tribalism is very modern. People become personally attached to a video game. A toy for an adult that you probably, you know, if we're being really honest, none of us should be fucking playing video games. We're all old cunts. We should go out there and be productive members of society, you know. But I've made my peace with that. But these people that become so personally invested that if you say something about their game that they don't like, that they want you to die, I don't really have time for that person, even if they make a good point. I'll read the good point, I'll take it on board, but, you know, I will revoke your rights to just abuse me. Anyway, there was just a bit of an aside, a bit of inside baseball. But a lot of people simping because what I was saying is, and I'm not going back on it at all, I think the stealth genre is generally not very good. Broadly speaking, it's a broken genre. It doesn't really work very often. It is telling that people just say, but what about Thief? Which I haven't played Thief in a long time and I never really loved it. But I don't really see, when I say the genre's shit and it's been shit for decades, 20, 30 years, right? And your answer is, yeah, but what about this one game that got it right? And that's everyone's answer, is they just use the one game as an example. I'm like, I don't think that's the win that you think it is. Like, we can agree, even though I haven't played much Thief, and it's been a very, very long time since I have, because I don't have the nostalgia for it. And I found that, if I recall, there was a little bit closer to immersive sim than actual just straight stealth game. But I don't even want to get into the weeds. Let's not get distracted in that fight. But I just think going and me saying, blanket statement, the genre of decades hasn't really done much well. And your answer is to give me one example over and over again of the same game. That kind of proves my point. You know, lifts off brilliant third-person shooters over the past even 10 years. I'll be generous, but, you know, go 20. The list will be fucking exhaustive. It'll be huge. It won't be one game. So yeah, all right, fine. Thief's good and does it well. I think the Metal Gear Solid games get given as an example, and I think people focus on 3 a bit. But you can fold them all in together because they're still made by the same team, by the same studio, by the same, you know, auteur. I'm not trying to cop out there, but it's not like you have original people in industry creating different stealth experiences. You have the Metal Gear series, which gets it right. Right? You know, you got 5 Metal Gear games or whatever, but it's not 5 different stealth games doing their own take on it. It's just the same guys doing it over and over again. Anyway, so look, I think there's common ground there. I agree that there are some stealth games that have got it right, but for the most part, building a game purely on the back of stealth is just fucking stupid. And it doesn't work at all. Do the game this way or you end screen. Doesn't work. Anyway, so Blood West. That was interesting. It brought some of the bloody nut jobs out who might have had some good points to say in between, you know, the abuse. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with that. I thought it was good. It was quite tough. And like I said, for someone who is very critical of stealth genre, I can't believe no one really used the Hitman game as an example, because that is like definitely a stealth-based game. But again, that's very much immersive sim as well. That's sort of the point that I think people can't really separate. I'll just lay this down anyway, because this is becoming a very exhaustive video anyway. Immersive sims are not stealth games. The idea of what an immersive sim is, to explain it, to break it down, is if you come into a room, there are, let's just say there's half a dozen different ways for you to tackle the room, to deal with it. You could go in and shoot everyone in the face, and let's say you could stealth. But they're just 2 of the things. Another one might be you could hack the computer, turn the turrets on, you know, your Bioshock sort of stuff, that sort of thing. Maybe, I don't know, you can interrogate a dude, or maybe even turn the lights off. So something blurring stealth. So you can sort of see immediately why people confuse them, because there is crossover, because outside of an immersive sim, there's not really an excuse to put stealth mechanics in most games. Funnily enough, I've been playing Avatar. That's got stealth components to it, but in the correct way, that you should have stealth components. You'll go attack an outpost and you'll try and initiate because you're incentivized to stealth, but then when the jig's up, it turns into a different genre, essentially. So immersive sim is about giving you multiple, you know, maybe you can use magic to teleport around up over the top, or maybe you've got fucking wings and you can fly through, or, you know, immersive sims are about giving you a kind of sandbox approach to pick your poison, how to cross through. And the real problem with immersive sims have a problem as well, because they put so many RPG mechanics into them, which I think is to their detriment. I think a true immersive sim, and I don't know if this even exists, would be one that's more akin to an action adventure, action shooter type game, right? Like a Portal type game or something like that. Something where you don't have RPG statistics. The real problem with an immersive sim is that it lets you start speccing into builds. So say you're playing, you know, a Deus Ex or something like that, and you turn your dude into a stealth dude. Now, when you go to an encounter, say 10 hours into the game, you put all your points into stealth, and you go to another immersive sim room, and there's half a dozen ways to go through the room, you're never going to choose anything except stealth. And so now that's explicitly not an immersive sim anymore. That's just an RPG that you've put points into a build and you're playing around your build. So the immersive sim, I reckon, shouldn't have RPG statistics at all. You should always be able to stealth, but you should always be incentivized to not stealth and maybe choose the other option as well. And now, as I say that statement, do you see what I mean? That an immersive sim game is not actually a stealth game. Stealth is just one of the options within it. And again, to finish my point, that's the main reason immersive sims have issues getting funded. They bankrupt companies routinely. You barely ever see them released ever, because it's hard enough designing, you know, Halo and getting your gunplay right. Now introduce every single encounter has half a dozen different ways to get through the room, and they're all different gameplay mechanics, and they all have to be fun and enticing. And it's sort of over-engineered. It's kind of what, when people talk about open world, immersive sim is the closest thing to really realizing what I think people mean when they say open world. Open world doesn't mean just a big procedural, empty, fucking boring space. It means kind of unlimited ways to navigate through it, and no two players should have the same experience. Immersive sims do that, but on a reasonable scale. And even then, they bankrupt their companies. Jesus. Anyway, I got distracted a little bit there. So Blood West. Blood West is good. Blood West has stealth components in it appropriately. It's the way to do stealth games, in that you shouldn't have stealth games explicitly. And, you know, I would argue under that paradigm, Metal Gear Solid V, the most recent one, is not a stealth game. It's exactly like Blood West. It's a game that has a stealth element to it, a stealth opener. And then once the jig's up, it turns into an action shooter game, right? So Blood West, where would we put that? Because I did enjoy that. I did enjoy that actually a fair bit. I might put it under DotAge and above The Last Train Home. All right, we're nearly there. SteamWorld build. So that was good, though I would argue a little bit short. I gave it a fairly glowing review, in that it was short, and then I went into New Game Plus. But I'm kind of, in my mind, walking that back a little bit, because I've set a very low bar for this price point. I play this game for X hours, and if I can finish the game in that time, that's probably not a good thing, right? At least when we're comparing things out. Now, yes, there was some New Game Plus, but all it was, I don't want to carry water for the game, right? And I'm not trying to do a full backpedal, but it was just turn the difficulty up, you unlocked a thing, go to a different biome. It wasn't, you know, I was kind of high on it a little bit when I made the review, but I've had a thing about it, especially following it with Against the Storm, which is a million times better and has a million times more content. So SteamWorld build was good, but I would argue is probably a bit overpriced. You can get it on Game Pass, but I think the arguments around the price point for it are very valid. Where would I put that? Funnily enough, I'm going to put it under DotAge and above Blood West. Even though I like Blood West, Colony Builder. And then the last one's Against the Storm, the one that we most recently reviewed. Excuse me. This is wearing my throat out. Lucky I'm only going to do this once a week. And it's probably never going to be this long ever again, he says. Because I won't have to do 14 games at once. Against the Storm. Fantastic colony builder. Probably one of the best. I'm absolutely smitten with this game. I love it to death. Where should I put that? Honestly, I'm putting it under Saabi and above The Last Fate. Okay, so I will promulgate this list. It'll be attached to this video somewhere. You know, there'll be a link. But as it stands currently, the game that I most highly recommend is Saabi at the top of the list, which makes sense. Okay, so what else? Just real quickly. Currently, the 3 games that I am reviewing on the pile are Avatar, bloody Way of Pandora, whatever, Frontiers of Pandora, whatever, subtitle of subtitles, which is really fun. It's good. I'm enjoying it. I did a review in progress of it. I've still got like maybe half a dozen hours to go with it. It is starting to wear me down a little bit. What else to say? Oh, the woke shit in it's pretty freaking insufferable. But I don't even want to necessarily open that up. I might talk about it in the review. But when it comes to, all right, maybe I'll just say this real quick. I think when people go, what does woke mean or whatever, they get a little bit, they get their hackles up, especially if they're more woke or more progressive. Avatar actually creates a really interesting example. Avatar at its core, even if you've watched the movies, has a real environmental friendly eco message. And the gameplay loop and all that reflects it. The way that you hunt, the way that the humans pollute things, and if you take down their facilities, the forest heals, and you can now start harvesting berries and all that in the polluted, what was the polluted zone. You know, the whole idea of hunting animals mercifully, picking berries and trying not to damage the quality and all that. So this is, I think people conflate. That's not woke. That is eco-friendly, progressive, but not in any jarring or even preachy way. It's internally consistent. Now, you might roll your eyes and go, I'm not really interested in playing a game that's eco sort of conscious, but it's not trying to browbeat you through the course of it for being a bad person if you're not on board with the message. Do you sort of understand what I mean? So it's actually a really well-realized gameplay mechanics from what I would argue is sort of a progressive concept. And I enjoy it on that merit. The woke stuff is when you start pushing shit in that doesn't fit and you browbeat people over the head with ideology and that sort of stuff. That's what woke really means. You could probably argue you could use that term on the other end of the political scale. But if you start putting stuff in that is jarring, that doesn't make sense, that the in-world characters would probably be like, wait, what the fuck? Why is that in the game? You know, when it's just self-inserts is another example that I would put in that same category. You know, that character doesn't look like they should be in the game, but they're clearly in there because a writer wanted them to be in there, you know? I can't think of a great analogy, but imagine something that was just out of place in our reality because we had a god that inserted it for his own personal reasons. It doesn't fit, it doesn't make sense, and you're not allowed to comment on it, or you can't. But even then, it's not even about allowed. You wouldn't have the faculty to acknowledge it or comment on it. I know I'm going a bit meta here, pretending you're a video game NPC looking at something that doesn't fit in the universe. The point is that you would actually react to it. You'd say, why is this fucking purple elephant here? That doesn't make sense. And the reason that it's there is because the developer, God or whatever, you know, to follow this analogy to its conclusion, said it's going in there because I fucking said so. Even if it doesn't really make sense, it doesn't fit, and I have my own personal reasons that have nothing to do with the world that I've built. You know, you as the NPC in real life looking at this purple elephant that inexplicably exists for no fucking reason, you would have questions, you would have things to say. And that's where the dissonance is, because if you do that in a video game and no one's reacting to this shit that's clearly been put in for arbitrary reasons, it's jarring. Because you're looking at it going, this doesn't make sense. Why aren't the characters reacting to it appropriately? And exactly, that's the point. That's the question. Anyway, so I just thought I'd just touch on that briefly, more than briefly. That yeah, I'm not against the eco stuff in Avatar. I am against the self-insert bullshit. But that's fine. We'll cover off that later. What else am I reviewing? I am also currently reviewing Warhammer Rogue Trader, which is pretty cool. It's pretty fun. I wouldn't say I am not a CRPG person, but it's been so long. I've been running this channel for so long doing 30-minute overviews. I haven't really gotten invested in games. I played a little bit of the first Pathfinder from the same studio, and I've barely touched the second one. And they're cool. They're cool games. But even things like Path of Exile and all that, I know that that's a good game. I know that I'd love it. Baldur's Gate 3, I should probably go back and really cut my teeth on. But there's just, it's an investment I haven't been able to afford. So, I've almost fallen out of that space. But yeah, I'm enjoying Rogue Trader. I'm role-playing as a very, very pro-Imperium fucking elitist dude. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's good. It's good so far. And I think I've already put up a video pre-reviewing it. Other game that I'm reviewing at the moment is Arizona Sunshine 2, which is good. It's great. It's VR. I get motion sick, though I've gotten a lot better with VR in recent times. My first reaction is it's base as fuck. The shit that the dude is saying is so last generation fucking 90s memes and jokes. You go through a metal detector and it goes off and he's like, that must have been my Prince Albert. And I'm laughing because it's dumb comedy that's not really around anymore. And I just love it, how fucking stupid it is. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. I don't have my VR legs. So like the game's difficult. And I think it's mostly because you get swarmed by zombies and it's expecting me to not teleport for movement. So running away when you get mobbed is very, very difficult to do if you are not playing it with a certain movement perspective. So that's a bit of an issue and it gets a little bit frustrating. I don't know. I might do a review in progress video on that. That might become the rhythm. But we'll see. So they're the 3 games that I'm reviewing at the moment. I'm not under embargo with all that, so I can talk about them. And then the 3 upcoming, there's a bunch of upcoming cool games, but the 3 likely, now this is all subject to change. House Flipper 2, I will probably be reviewing. I've got a good relationship with the devs. I'm pretty sure I have a key locked in. I just have to wait for it, I suppose. So we'll be covering that. House Flipper 1 was pretty cool. We will likely be reviewing Stargate Timekeepers. I like a lot of what Slytherin does. Actually, they do a lot of really obscure wargamey stuff, and then they've got their Matrix Games storefront, which is another whole rabbit hole. And that stuff's all a bit too hardcore for me. So a lot of their releases I don't cover because they're too hardcore wargamey. A bit too niche for me. And I'm a bit funny about the Stargate game. Like, I do want to review it. I do want to see what it's about. But I don't really love the Commandos style games. I think, much like I think there's issues with the stealth genre, I think there's issues with those games as well. They are in a stealth genre thing. They don't really work that well. Commandos has a huge cult following, but even at the time as a kid, I thought there was something wrong with the genre in that if you misstep and your dude dies, it's over. Like, you guys can't really get shot or fight or anything. And so you just, early save scumming. You see if you could move out here to the left and, no, guy shot me, reload, save. You're just spamming reloading saves, and that's not really good gameplay design. Anyway, so from what I understand, Stargate Timekeepers, and I like Stargate, I think it's a Commandos-style game, which is really weird. And I think a lot of people are really kind of miffed about that too. So I wonder how it's going to go. But I'm pretty sure I've got that locked in for review. So I will probably cover that. And then the other one that I want to review is Cookie Cutter. Another one that I'm pretty sure I've got the key lined up already with the devs. That looks really interesting. I saw someone joking that it's upsetting both sides of the ideological bullshit online. Fuck, I hate all that stuff. I hate Twitter. I hate that I know what I just said. Right? I just want to play games, but I have to talk to devs on Twitter. It has a comic styling very much in the vein of like Earthworm Jim, Ren and Stimpy, that sort of stuff. has this kind of hipster main chick, but she's ugly because the art style is kind of ugly. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. I'm not an artist. But you know what I mean. I might find some B-roll for it or whatever and put it up. But yeah, even like Earthworm Jim, you could probably... Ren and Stimpy's a better example, right? It looks great, but it's like ugly. It's gross out, that sort of thing. Cookie Cutter seems to be a Metroidvania doing that. Anyway, I don't really know what to make of that, but it looks kind of cool. Looks kind of wild. So I might give that a bit of a go. But this is all subject to change. There's a bunch of other games that are pretty cool coming out, but I can only really do 3 a week. So that's where we're at. All right, cool. This was very, very long, and hopefully it actually makes it onto the channel. We'll see. I can't really afford to do another long video like this in the future. I just can't. But they'll probably be cleaner and quicker. We'll seed the 3 games and predict the 3 upcoming, and potentially a year from now we'll be rotating out 3-ish sort of thing. So yeah, thoughts are welcome. I mean, whatever you reckon of this, if you listened to it all and watched it, let me know. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. All right, Team Mudges leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.